Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you cruise a little smarter. And it's just me today. And I would like to welcome back to the show all the way over in Utah, one of our favorite guests. He's been on several times. Thank you so much for coming back and talking some Disney Cruise Line with me again. Welcome to the show, Coby.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me again. I feel like a celebrity. You get the 5-time jacket, like on Saturday Night Live, or the it's the reoccurring role. So I'm glad to be back.
We joke about that, and the sad thing is I've never really sent anything out to you guys. And one of these days, I'm going to send something out, and you're just going to get some obscure box and be going, "What the heck is this?" And hopefully, you'll appreciate whatever it is we sent. Well, the last time we talked to you, it was just you and your wife out sailing. And as they say, all good things come to an end. You have to go back. And this time we're going to talk about you guys' next cruise where you brought the whole family. Let's just dive into it, Coby. Well, before we do that, I guess I know that several other listeners know who you are, but just for those that are new to the show, why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little about who cruises with you normally and some of the cruises you've been on?
Yeah, sure. So I've been cruising with Disney since it was a cruise line, and before that with the big red boat. Went on that a couple times, but back in the late 90s, I got kind of hooked on Disney cruising with some friends who were cast members on the early days of the Disney Magic and Disney Wonder, and got to go on a couple cruises with them in their cabins. So that was fun. And then once we started having kids in the early 2000s, we started bringing them on the ship with us. And now we've got 4 with us. So we're covering up 2 staterooms these days. But yeah, our kids range in age from 8 to 18 at this point. And so they've seen all the gamuts and all the different clubs on the ship. So that's who's sailing with us these days. This particular cruise was my family, as well as my sister and brother-in-law and their 4 kids, and my mother. So there was a big crew with us this time.
That's always exciting to do, because not only did you guys do the cruise, but you guys also went to Walt Disney World. So a lot of planning there. How did that work out? Were you kind of the lead planner, or has your sister and brother-in-law been down and along this, taking these vacations as well?
It's a guilty pleasure, but I love planning. It's almost more fun than the actual vacation. It's like getting everything ready and planning all the details out. So I'm definitely the planner in the family, and got them hooked up with the cruise. They didn't join us for the Disney World portion, so it was just my family with us. And we came out a few days before the cruise and flew into Orlando, and spent 3 days there before we actually drove down to Miami. And we can talk about that. That was very, very exciting. Not very exciting.
The Miami Grand Prix, the F1 was going on, I think, just this last week or 2 weeks ago. And I think that after watching that, a little bit of that, I think that's kind of the experience most of you guys have on the freeway heading down to Miami between Orlando and Miami. Yeah,
the turnpike is something else.
I want to jump back just real quick, since you were on the
sure.
and you were on the, started off with the Magic when you first started sailing. There's a podcast out, which is one of my favorites, called the 3028 podcast. And I haven't listened to it yet, but they just recently did a podcast on the Big Red Boat, and they kind of talk about history. So I don't know if you've listened to that, but I throw that out there.
I haven't. Yeah, that'll be one to put into my queue.
I'll send you a link to it. But if any of our listeners out there, they do a really good job. Usually, if Kevin and Matt do a really good job of covering like Disney history, and that's the first time they've really touched on Disney Cruise Line. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you is they redid the Promenade Lounge to the Soul Cat Lounge on the Disney Magic recently. Have you taken a chance to see that? Have you seen pictures?
I did see the pictures of it. I mean, it looks great. Some people are saying that it's better than the Bayou Lounge on the Wonder. I don't know about that, but it looks great.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool too. I like a couple of the nods. They had Joe's coat, I guess. They had like a coat rack with his coat and everything like that. And I think his hat too, which I think that's sort of cool up on the stage.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
So, all right, let's jump into this cruise and sailing though. So you guys start off at Walt Disney World, fly all the way over from Utah there. Yep. Did you guys have a car while we were there? Or did you pick up the car to go to Miami afterwards?
We did. We took the red eye in, which I feel like we should have learned from our mistakes for years. But we it seems like the easiest way to get there from Salt Lake. Get there early in the morning and picked up the car at the airport. Went to a condo that we'd rented close by. It was a Friday, so I worked most of that day just remotely, and the kids slept till a little afternoon, which was great. Spent the day at the pool. Just enjoyed the time there in Orlando that day, and because we knew we had pretty big days planned at the parks on Saturday and Sunday before the cruise. Saturday and Sunday we woke up early, got our Genie Plus reservations, and headed out the door. And we were planning on hitting 2 parks per day, so we could hit all 4 parks in 2 days. And wow, we certainly got our money's worth. It was fairly busy time, but I think surprisingly during spring break, Saturdays and Sundays are better than the weekdays, which blew my mind. The crowd levels were a lot smaller than what we'd been looking at the previous few days. So, we got in. We started at Rope Drop on Saturday at the Magic Kingdom. Spent about 6 hours there. Got everything we wanted to do, and then took the monorail over to Epcot. Got everything we wanted to do there, except for Remy, which was down. But we did get to go on the Guardians ride twice, which was our first time and my new favorite ride at Disney World. That was quite a blast.
Yeah, I love the music that they incorporate with it, and I think that really kind of sets the tone for each ride being a little bit different too.
Yeah, absolutely. Guardians has done such a good job with their soundtrack, and it just makes it so much fun.
Did you guys do Tron over at Magic Kingdom then?
Yeah. So the cool thing was it was previews. It wasn't open yet. They had opened it up for previews, and so early that morning at 7 a.m., we got on the app and refreshed, and we got a pass to come in fairly early in the day, actually. So we got to ride and preview Tron. It was fun. I mean, I don't know if the hype is as good as it's a little bit more hyped than I was expecting, but it was a good, entertaining experience. It was shorter than I thought.
Yeah, that's what everybody keeps saying. It's like what, 90 seconds or something like that.
I don't even know if it's 90 seconds.
Or maybe 60 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Mine Train's short, and I know that Tron is shorter than Mine Train, so I can't even imagine. I can't wait to ride it, I guess, because I've heard it's fun, but it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, we skipped Mine Train this time. We're not going to pay for the extra individual lightning lanes, and we didn't want to wait in an hour and a half line for that one.
Nah, I mean, it's fun.
It's not one of our favorites.
I'm with you there. It's fun, but I think we get a little, when your kids are a little bit older, I'm not sure how exciting it really is, I guess, in some ways. So, especially for that wait. All right. So the next day you guys are at Animal Kingdom then in Hollywood Studios. Yeah.
Animal Kingdom. We rope dropped Animal Kingdom. Really easy to rope drop Animal Kingdom. It opens up a little bit earlier than the rest of the parks. We walked on Everest 4 times in a row, and we're like, we could do it another time, but we'll probably be sick the rest of the day if we keep doing this over and over. So we decided not to do that anymore. But we hit everything at least once at Animal Kingdom before lunch, really. And then had a little snack and a break in the car as we drove over to Hollywood Studios, and then spent the rest of the evening at Hollywood Studios. We actually hit almost everything that we wanted to at Hollywood Studios before the night was over. And so we took the Skyliner over and hit Remy because the kids were bummed that we didn't get it the night before. So we just did a little detour and hit Remy, then came back and hit Tower of Terror a couple times before the night was up.
Wow. So you guys really got quite a few rides in then over this weekend. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think I counted them up, and we were well over 30 rides in that time frame. It was quite a bit.
Was that the first time riding Remy?
No, we'd done Remy before.
Okay.
We had done Remy before, but it was the second time.
Okay. Well, I guess one other question. Do you guys have any meals or anything stand out meal-wise?
At Disney World?
Yeah.
No, we're kind of like the run and gun at Disney World. We don't stop and smell the roses. So it's usually like a quick service here or a snack there, just as we're going from ride to ride. So, nothing's ever really, write home about for the quick service restaurants.
Okay. Well, I'll just throw this out there. We were talking about this ahead of time. A lot of planning goes into it. And you said this, very different vacations between Walt Disney World and then going on a cruise afterwards. And you've been on so many different cruises, so you knew what was coming next. Just as a recommendation for people, do you still recommend maybe doing the parks first and then a cruise second?
Oh, without a doubt. We've done it both ways. But after we tracked our steps and our miles after, a half marathon each day, we definitely needed a break and needed to sit in a deck chair and relax for a little while. My feet were blistered. Let's put it like that. It was nice to get into sandals afterwards.
There's nothing better than getting the shoes off and putting those flip flops, ulukais, whatever you like to wear on. So I love that. All right, so a little bit of a drive down to Miami. Talk about the Turnpike. Any thoughts? Any opinions as far as like advice you might give people as far as driving down to Miami from Walt Disney World?
It's pretty straight, smooth drive. It's like 90%. I think I've heard Christy talk about this. 95% of the drive is awesome. You're just going straight. And then you get into Miami and you're like white knuckling it, trying to get to the port. Luckily it was like Monday afternoon. So the traffic wasn't too bad. Didn't have to deal with any rush hour or anything like that. So, but there's still a ton of construction down in Miami. So just plan a little bit more time than what your Google Maps or your Apple Maps says. It did take us a little bit longer than we thought.
Do you remember roughly what your port arrival time that you guys had picked and when you guys left, just for people?
Yeah. So we had picked a port arrival time. I think we had trouble like with the check-in process. We got a bit of a later port arrival time. I think it was like 12:45 or something like that. We got to the port about 12:30. We left about little after 8. So it took us about 4.5 hours to get there with one brief stop.
Okay. And did you guys park at the port or did you guys turn the car in?
We did. We parked at the port, crunched the numbers and decided it was cheaper to rent the car for the week. Plus some, and then just drive it back. And then we didn't have to deal with the rental car agencies as we were coming back.
We've actually done that the last couple of times because it's been cheaper, like you said, rather than splitting the reservation up. It's been cheaper just to rent it for the week and actually pay the parking fees at Park Canaveral than it has been. And then it's nice to just get off the ship and your car's right there and get up and get out.
It was really nice just to be able to walk off the ship and say goodbye to the family and say, hey, have fun with the taxis or the Ubers or wherever you're going, and just jump in our car and be able to drive. There
we go. Okay, so let's get you on the ship. You guys are on the Disney Dream. You've sailed on the Dream before. This is a 5-night sailing out of Miami where you guys go to Castaway first, a little bit different. A day at sea, over to Cozumel, day at sea, then back to Miami. What were your thoughts about getting back on the Dream, Coby?
Well, this was actually the shortest time frame between cruises that we've ever had, at least for Tiffany and I, because we were on in September. And so now we're here at the end of March coming on again. So it was just like getting home again. That was kind of fun. But the difference in capacity was astounding. Like when we were there in September, it felt like we kind of had the ship to ourselves. It was easy to navigate. There was no lines for anything. Coming on for a spring break cruise was a completely different world. There were so many more people, which is something we weren't used to. I mean, we typically sail in the off season, and just with spring break this year, this was the only time that worked for us.
How did the crew handle it overall then with that many people? I mean, I know for a lot of people too, I know that cruised, especially immediately after COVID when the crowds are so low. Now, I think the spring break and maybe the Christmas time is the first time these crowds are coming back where the ships are completely full. How did the crew and the ship handle it?
They're really good at what they do. Disney's probably the best at handling crowds, but you could definitely feel it throughout the ship and throughout everywhere we went. A good example is, we typically get on and head into whatever restaurant has the sit down lunch. Last time when Tiffany and I were on there, we got out of lunch within 40 minutes, maybe. This time it took us an hour and 40 minutes just because the service was a lot slower. Everyone was waiting for desserts. And by the time that the desserts came, we were ready to, get to our rooms.
One other thing, I guess, to touch on before we get into this trip itself, did you guys book anything ahead of time? Did you guys book either Palo or Remy, or did you guys have anything on with the kids? My kids actually really like that Goofy sports simulator. So on the sea days, I'll always try and block like a 30-minute spot for one of them, and then the next day or the next sea day, if we have two sea days, I'll block the other one off for the other kid, and they can both go together. Would you guys book anything ahead of time?
Typically I will go through and book things like that after check-in or after we're able to. But like by the time I actually logged on, almost everything was full. Like I wanted to get our daughter and my niece to the princess gathering. Both princess gatherings were full by like 8 a.m. the day after they were open. So I didn't have a chance to book much on the ship beforehand, other than we did book an excursion in Cozumel through the ship.
Once you got on the ship, were you able to add anything then as far as the princess gatherings?
We did, yeah. Talked to guest services, and they put us on a wait list. And the next day they sent us a notice that we were cleared to go meet the princesses.
I think I saw that picture of sometimes I see too many pictures, but I think I do remember seeing your daughter meeting Cinderella. Am I right?
Yeah. She met all of them. There was a lot of princess meet and greets, a lot of autographs, which we hadn't had to deal with before, but it was fun.
Okay, we'll talk about that here in just a second. All right, so unfortunately, not able to book a lot of different things other than you get your port excursion in, but I'm glad that came through for you once you got on board. So tip, if you don't get it before you set sail, as soon as you get on, either go to guest services, and then obviously we've talked about it about a million times, you get a dining to be able to change your dining times if that's a possibility. And then you can always go up to Palo or over to the spa to add things as well. So good tips there. So what did you guys decide to book this time room-wise, Coby?
So this time we booked deluxe family ocean view rooms. We had two of those that the bulk of our families stayed in, and then we had rooms across the hall we booked an inside room for the tweens that we moved them over there. And then my mom joined us late, and so there was a connecting room with that inside room. And so that's where she joined us as well. So 2 ocean views and 2 inside standard cabins.
Did you have any problem getting those close together when you originally booked?
Not originally, no, that wasn't a problem. I mean, we booked fairly early on. This is a cruise that, like I think I mentioned before, we've pushed out. We originally booked this cruise in like 2019, and we had to keep pushing it out for 3 or 4 times. So it was pretty easy to get the rooms close together.
Okay, so I got a weird question because we're actually doing this for the first time. We've got 2 cabins booked on our next cruise, and I'm not really too worried about it with our kids, but having the tweens, although your mom was next door, having the tweens, have that inside room by themselves. How'd you keep track of them? Did they go to bed on time, or were they just out running around? Or like, that's what I'm thinking is like, because I'm probably going to fall asleep about 10:30 or something like that. And I know my youngest is not going to be in bed at that time.
Yeah. The great thing about the cruise is, they can't go too far.
That's a good point.
we didn't worry about it a ton. Just one thing logistically with that is they still had to have an adult on the name of the room, someone over 18. So we had to go to guest services and create duplicate key cards. So like my brother-in-law could go to his actual stateroom where he was staying, and then my son could use the inside stateroom. So we had to do a little bit of logistic issues there. But yeah, we check on them as we were going to bed. Usually they were with us for most of the night, but during the day they just had free reign and just were doing their own things. And when the app worked, it was great to be able to message them and say, "Hey, where are you?" So and so. It worked out pretty well. We didn't worry about it.
It is amazing. My younger son, how we're like, all right, here's the deal, dude. Dinner's at 8:30. Meet us in the room at 8:15, and he'll come flying in at 8:14. And then he's got to of course he's a mess, man. He's got to comb his hair, whatever else it is, put something decent on, get out to dinner and everything like that. But anyways, yeah. Okay.
Just sounds like boys.
It is. I love it. So it worked out pretty good. You guys enjoyed that setup that way?
Yeah, no, it worked great. I mean, I think I would have loved to have a veranda, but just with the inside staterooms, the way that they were paired, it just didn't work out the best for us. But, as long as we're on the ship, we're happy. It doesn't matter.
I hear you there. Okay. First day getting on, are you guys sailaway part? Did the whole family go to the sailaway since you get your sister and brother-in-law and everything like that and your mom?
I think some of them did. I've seen it so many times. The crowds aren't my favorite thing, so we declined to go to the sailaway party and just went to the various open houses and just kind of explored the ship while that was going on.
Did you catch any of the those big houses and yachts as you left Miami? That's always kind of iconic.
It's so awesome. It's such a great sail away. In fact, my oldest and my wife and I just went up on that front of deck 12 and just got the wind blown look as we're sailing out of Miami, and it was just beautiful.
I think that's like my favorite thing to do now is like when we kind of skip the sailaway party too, but we'll go like maybe like up above where the adult area is. And whatever port we're leaving out of, it's just kind of a nice place. So you get the vibe a little bit of what's going on back there, but you're not in the masses, and then just enjoy the scenery as you leave, whether it's Miami or wherever else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Stay up on deck, but you don't need to go to the party unless you're really into that.
Well, let's turn to dining. Enchanted Garden, and then Animator's Palette, of course. And I always forget which one. I always forget the name of the French restaurant on the Dream for some reason.
Is it the Royal Palace or the Royal Court? It's either the court or the palace. I can't remember.
Yeah, somebody told me the reason. Somebody gave me a way to remember it a while ago, and I can't remember. But what dining time did you guys have, and what were your overall thoughts of dining this cruise?
Yeah, I mean, we always get the late dining. We have older kids, so that's not too bad. And also coming from West Coast time zones, it's easy. We'll always have a snack before dinner anyway. First dinner and on deck, and then second dinners in the main dining room. So overall, I thought they did a really good job considering the number of people that were on the ship. I thought the staff did an amazing job. So one thing that was really cool is because we were there in September, we really got to know, didn't get to know them real well, but we really liked our wait staff. And we knew that they were both leaving, but they would both be back by the next time we were on the ship. One of them was getting married, and the other one was starting their next contract. Just randomly, I submitted their names to say, hey, could we get one or the other? They may not be paired up again. Turns out they were paired up again, and we got the same staff. So that was very cool to see them again. So we were super excited to catch up with Sean and Catherine on the Dream that night I think it was the Enchanted Garden, our first night.
The Royal Palace. I looked it up. So Enchanted. I love Enchanted Garden, by the way. I know
it's probably my favorite restaurant. The first time I went on the Dream, it was my least favorite, but that was like 2015. Now it's probably my favorite just because I think the food is probably the best. That seafood is the winner, hands down.
I agree with you. I love the ahi tuna tower on that one, I think, or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah,
the tuna avocado.
And it's just a kind of a bright, airy restaurant, and I just love having dinner down there, to be completely honest. And it's weird because I think that's like when we've thrown it out to people in the past, that's the one that they think is the most likely to be rethemed on the fantasy and the Dream. But I think a lot of people, it's their favorite restaurant.
I would say it's my favorite for sure. And it may have something to do with the food and that I like the menu the best, but it's definitely our favorite. And it was cool. Like, I felt like because we had a party of 13, we had a nice big table in a more secluded area. It wasn't in like the main traffic area. And so in all the restaurants, we had a really great location.
How did that work for Crush? Having that huge table, did Crush come talk to you guys? Or
yeah, he actually did. Got to talk to Crush. He talked to my nephew and my son, and he was like literally just right there on the right side of our table. So it was right in front of us.
You guys just had the one server and one assistant server for 13. Yep. Wow.
Yeah,
that's
they did a great
impressive.
job. They did a great job.
That's impressive. I love it. And I know it's got to be one of your favorite parts of going back on the ships and seeing people that you've cruised with before, as far as the cast members goes. It's such a cool thing to be able to connect with them. Yeah,
seeing all the head servers that we've had in the past, and we saw some stateroom attendants that we've had in the past. We didn't get the same ones, but it's just really fun, to see familiar faces.
So let's start with the adults first. You guys have a pretty big group there. What were some of the things that you and your wife enjoyed maybe doing together, maybe as a group, that you guys experienced on the ship entertainment wise?
Things that we did as adults. It was mostly just my wife and myself that went to the adult entertainment at night. because my sister and brother-in-law they have a son that didn't quite love going to the kids clubs, and so was kind of attached to them, so wasn't able to go to some of the adult entertainment activities at night. So Tiffany and I usually went to those after dinners. We typically did most things as a family, though. Like, you got to the shows early at night, made sure that we had enough seats for everyone, but those were packed every single night. You know, typically for the Golden Mickeys, you don't see a full packed house, but for the Golden Mickeys on night one, like, we got there 10 minutes before the show started, and there was hardly any seats to be found on either level.
So getting there early was definitely a key for this cruise. And I guess it's like one of those things that we all got to get used to, I guess, right? As these ships are full again, it's like, you got to get back to being there at least 15, maybe even 20 minutes early.
Yeah, exactly. Like, plan for more time at cabanas, plan for more time getting your quick service food, plan for more time getting off the ship and back on the ship. Everything's taking a little bit longer.
Well, before we wrap back to the shows, did you and Tiffany maybe stop by the District Loungers? That's kind of that one that's in between Pub 687 and Skylines, where a lot of times they have live music. That's one of the things that's really become one of Onawakes and my favorites, is to seek out some of the live music. Did you guys listen to some of the live music together?
Yeah, typically we'll just stop and relax for a little bit. We've got 15 or 20 minutes before we need to go meet the kids someplace. We'll just stop and relax and listen. Typically, when we were in those lounges, though, it would be for during the day for trivias or activities with the family, things like that. Though
that has become one of my favorite things to kind of seek out. Is they've had some amazing entertainers lately on board the ships that we sailed on. So just amazing.
They're so talented.
Yeah. So the shows on this one, you get the Golden Mickeys and then Beauty and the Beast, right?
Yeah. Golden Mickeys, Beauty and the Beast. And then the last one is Dreams.
So you guys went to all three, and any thoughts on those?
I'd seen all of them 4 or 5 times at this point. It was fun to see the kids' reaction, because they either had seen them, 10 years ago or 8 years ago, or had never seen them before at all. So they really enjoyed them. I felt like we kind of forced them to go the first night, and then every other night after that, they were excited to go.
It's been a long time since I've seen the Golden Mickeys. I can't even remember. I know they have like the red carpet, and they're kind of going back and forth. And now Bob Iger was there, then he was gone, and now he's back again. So that kind of fits, I guess, which makes it kind of fun. But it's been a long time since I've seen the Golden Mickeys. Does that show still stand up?
Yeah, I mean, it probably needs an update, but they've added some new songs and some new pieces to it, but it's still fun. Ending with Mickey and the crew on stage is always a win for the crowd. So yeah, I think a couple of updates. I mean, if they wanted to re-record the Bob Iger video, that would be very helpful. Have it widescreen instead of standard screen format. They've got some old technology, but it's still fun.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot and make you become a theater critic all of a sudden, but
oh yes.
There's a hotel that we used to stay at, a crew hotel, and actually here in Portland. I haven't stayed there forever, but in the elevator they have these pictures all from the 80s, and it's like it's like in the 2000s, 2010s, and everything like that. They still get their pictures from the 80s. And I always kind of wonder if they saw those pictures from the 80s episodes. They were very telling. So yeah, maybe someday they'll update that. Okay, let's talk about some of the things that what were some of the things that it's got to be fun to have cousins on board for your kids to be able to spend that time together and just explore the ship and whatnot. What were some of the fun things that your kids got to experience?
It's always a lot easier to go to an activity when you've got a friend that's your age, that can go with you. Everyone except for my oldest kind of had a buddy their own age, which was helpful. So they got to go to activities at the kids club together. We got to go to the trivias and they did the midship detective agency together, and so I didn't have to go along with them this time. So that was always good. They kind of were self-entertained, which was great. We'd be like, hey, you've got this activity at noon, this activity at 1, do what you want to do, or you can go watch a movie and get ice cream. It's totally up to you. It's their vacation too. So we just kind of let them have free reign. For my oldest though, not having, kind of at that age where you're almost 18 and you don't really have a group to fit in with, he good for him. He kind of went out of his comfort zone. And the first night I was like, just go try and meet people at the Vibe, see what happens. And so he met some really good friends, and he spent every evening after we went to bed, he'd go to the Vibe until like 1 a.m. And so that's always fun, waking us up at 1 a.m. when he strolls through the door. But he had a good time and met some new friends and played some fun games. And so that was really good for him.
I'm hoping my oldest does that. He was like hot and heavy into the edge and everything else, and then he's kind of pulled back. So although he's become a lot more social here just recently in high school. So I'm kind of hoping on our next cruise that he kind of does what your older son does as well. So because it's nice, like you said, it's not just your guys, it's not just a family vacation, but it's their individual kind of vacations too. So I'm glad he was able to find some fun times together on the ship. Let's talk about the princess meet and greet. We haven't really talked about that a lot lately. How does that work for people these days?
Basically, you're assigned a time. You need to show up within like a 15-minute window. It's great because like most of the character meet and greets, there's a 15 minute to half an hour line for all of them, and then ones kind of rotate through the characters, and you get one character for waiting in line for 15 minutes. The princess meet and greet's great because you show up and you're in line for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then you get to meet 4 or 5 princesses right back to back in the atrium. So they just kind of take you meet one princess, they take you back, and then you meet the next princess. And it's like, you can get through all of them, all 4 or 5. I can't remember how many there were off the top of my head, but like we were done in 15 to 20 minutes rather than just waiting in line 15 to 20 minutes to meet one character. So really appreciate those types of meet and greets.
Did you guys buy the photo package by any chance for this, or did you just use your own cameras?
Oh, Steve, I'm so cheap. I don't,
It's okay.
It's the iPhone for me. I can take a decent picture with my iPhone. So no, we didn't do the photo package this time. I like to make a kind of a montage of all the pictures afterwards. And so it's just nice to have them on your phone where you can just like throw them into a timeline and create a musical montage of the pictures afterwards. So
do you take videos at all? I've started finally just taking some videos, like just clips every now and then, just to add those in as well.
Yeah, I definitely do. I started, editing when, in high school with VHS tapes.
Google that if
that really dates me.
I know.
Middle school and high school. So one thing I like to do after every trip is just to throw together a movie of our trip. And so I'll gather all the footage and put something together, and then I'll add that still collage in there as well. So I'll throw the link out to you if you want to catch up on our family vacation.
Well, cool. Anything else stand out on the ship then, Coby? Things that you guys did that we haven't talked about, either as a family or just you and Tiffany or the kids?
Obviously, we wanted to spend as much time together as possible. And one of the best times that we found to do that was in between the show and dinner. And we'd always go up to the deck between the show and the dinner. And that was our like prime time to ride the aqueduct. Whereas, the line during the day is like 45 minutes long. It's like 4 to 5 minutes long during those evening hours. So it's a good time to just laugh and reconnect. And those that don't want to get wet, we'll just take pictures and videos of us out there being silly. So that's kind of what we did for most evenings on the ship.
I actually like it in the evening anyways, just with the lights and everything like that as you're kind of cruising around. I think going up on the aqueduct, and I only rode the Aquamouse once on the Wish, but at night, I think there's just adds a special element to it.
I agree. I think that it's a lot more fun at night with the strobe, not strobe lights, but the spinning different colored lights. And it's just, like I say, you can just do laps. So you can hit it 4 or 5 times in 20 minutes and be good for the whole cruise if you want to be.
Did you guys do Goofy Golf at all?
We did. Yeah. We played it a couple different times, played it on the first day. And I think I played it with one of my sons on like one of the sea days. That's always a crowd pleaser. I remember the first time we played Goofy Golf, they actually had real golf balls, but now it's just those foam golf balls that must be biodegradable or something if they get hit into the ocean or fly off. A little bit harder. I'm not going to take it too personally if I don't get par on every single hole, but it's always fun. Yeah, it's a good little diversion.
It's the DCL creatives. They know that you've been sailing too many times, so they need to change things up for you to make it a little more tricky for you. So.
That's right, and they need to make it harder for me.
Yeah, Coby's been hitting too many hole-in-ones. We gotta mix it up a little bit for him. So, all right. Well, let's talk about your guys' stops. A little bit different going to Castaway the first day. Normally, and actually, I like this because you get a sea day at the end. To be completely honest, because I love that sea day versus Castaway and having to get kicked off. But what was that like going to Castaway first?
Yeah, first time for us going to Castaway first, and I was honestly I was a little bummed about that. I wasn't really looking forward to the itinerary because it's always nice to wrap up on Castaway. It turned out like so great, like because we had such a great day on Castaway. We got up early, had breakfast at Cabanas, got off the ship by like 9:30. Went to our typical place where we camp out at Castaway, and just had a beautiful, perfect day there. Like we're usually like one of the first ones off, one of the last ones back on the ship. It was great. I mean, the only problem I would say with having Castaway day one is no matter how much sunscreen you put on, you will get burnt on Castaway if your skin has not seen the sun for 6 or 7 months. I mean, I must have reapplied 4 or 5 times, must have reapplied it to the kids 4 or 5 times, and everyone still came back with a bit of a sunburn. So, we used the aloe that night, but otherwise it was a perfect day at Castaway.
Yeah, coming from Utah, where you guys have been skiing for the last couple of months and everything like that.
We're still skiing. It's mid-May, Steve. We're still skiing here.
I know. It's the only reason why they're not skiing up here on Mount Hood is because one of the main lift at Mount Hood Meadows broke, and so they had to shut down the resort for the rest of the year. So, which is too bad. Because that's the main one that gets you up to catch some of the other lifts and stuff like that. Actually, there's another one, Timberline, which is year round, and they've got a glacier up there that people can ski on year round. The U.S. ski team uses it sometimes, but that one's still open. But nice. What's funny is you talk about that sunburn thing. Like, I think last time, to your point, we hadn't been out in the sun forever, and it's invariably like we get the suntan lotion like on most of us, but there's always like one part. I remember my wife, like some like lower part of her back was just bright red. I was like, how did we miss that? I don't even know.
I know.
Of course, she blamed me because I was responsible for it. But
you are. Even if you didn't apply it, you're responsible for it. You know that, Steve.
Exactly. Did you guys rent bikes or anything, or did you guys just chill out on the beach?
We were going to rent bikes. We'd actually spent more time than I thought we would in line at Pelican Plunge. Usually we go at the very beginning of the day or the very end of the day, but there was always a line at Pelican Plunge. So we still tried it a couple times, but it spent, probably a half an hour, 45 minutes longer than we anticipated. So we did that a couple times. Lunch took a little longer than anticipated. There were lines at Cookies and Cookies too. It took us 15 to 20 minutes longer there. So we didn't actually make time to rent bikes this time, because we just playing on the beach together. We brought a few sets of snorkels, and so I probably took 3 different laps in the lagoon with various kids and parents to kind of guide them. So I was pretty beat. So I spent a lot of the time just kind of on a lounger in the hammock after lunch.
Rumor has it there's a couple of new statues out there. Am I at the lunch?
There are, yeah. Since at least since I've been there recently, they've added a Prince Eric statue, which is cool. Boo's Door was new to me. I saw that last time, but there was a Dumbo ride as well. Those are the 3 that were new to me, or relatively new. So yeah, they've added a few more.
I've actually not been out there in 5 years, I guess. So I need to get out there and do that. Is it still, not to give it away, but I guess to give it away, usually they're marked by something up above?
Yeah, they still have buoys to mark where everything is. And, I always tell people this, and I told everyone in my family, I was like, you just have to plan on 5 to 10 minutes of seeing nothing. And then it's going to be fun and entertaining, and you'll really enjoy it. And so just as long as you set expectations that you're going to be seeing nothing but grass for 5 to 10 minutes while you get out there, then it's a really cool experience.
That is a good point. It's a little bit of a ways. If it's your first time going to Castaway Key, it's a little bit of a ways to get out there until you actually see those statues and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So,
yep.
All right. Anything else about Castaway before we turn to Cozumel?
This isn't necessarily specifically about Castaway, but it was on Castaway night. Like I say, we were pretty burnt, so we'd planned on going to some of the adult activities that night. I think Match Your Mate was that night, but we fell asleep instead of going to it. Like I say, my oldest son Corbin, he went out to the Vibe and got back about 1 a.m. and then about 1:10 or one, maybe it was a little bit before 1. A blast came over the intercom. At 1 a.m, there was a shipwide announcement saying Alpha Crew, red alert, deck 910, garbage chute. And then we're like, it woke everyone up and we're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And like nothing, absolutely nothing for about 25 minutes to a half an hour. And I was like, what is going on? And then just as I'm drifting back to sleep, another all ship broadcast saying the captain came on and saying there was a fire, but it had been extinguished. And I was like, well, so much for a good night's sleep at this point. It's 2:00 in the morning, and they just woke us up for the second time. So 3 times I got woken up in that night. So I slept in the next morning.
Wow.
I've never had that happen to me before. So that was entertaining.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that it was as easy as that, I guess. It wasn't like a fire that was bigger, I guess, because that's like one of the worst things you can have.
Luckily, we didn't have to abandon ship or anything like that.
Speaking of abandoning ship, though, so back to the old, you get to hang out with all your 5,000, or I guess, what is it, 4,000 on the Dream, 4,000 of your closest friends for the muster drill.
I miss the days.
Yeah.
Disney's got to figure it out and go back to that. Seems like all the other cruise lines have figured out the virtual muster drill, but it was quick. It wasn't too painful this time. It's kind of puts a damper on your first day because you just have to break for like that half an hour, or whatever it is.
I don't know. Fingers crossed they go back to it. We just checked in. We're going on the Bliss this Saturday on Norwegian Bliss out of Seattle up to Alaska. And literally they send you a video to watch. It's about a minute and a half. It goes through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you do it at home.
So much easier.
It's just because it just breaks up the day. Like right when you're just like, oh man, we could go do this, but we gotta do that. Or yeah,
that's my biggest problem with it. Why can't you do it while you're waiting to board the ship?
Yeah. Or, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah, obviously you wouldn't know where exactly your muster station is if you've never been on the ship before, but then go scan your code so you know where the muster station is. I don't know.
All right, well, let's move on to Cozumel. You've been there before, I'm correct?
Yeah, we've been there a couple times. I love Cozumel. I think it's a nice destination. It can be a little, touristy, but like the scuba diving and the snorkeling is just otherworldly there. So we love visiting Cozumel. So we had an early excursion planned. So we did the room card breakfast service for that morning and met in the theater for our excursion. We did the Fury catamaran snorkel excursion. And it was great because they picked us up right at the pier. We didn't have to go and take a bus and go to a different marina or a different pier or anything like that. So, but I was blown away with the number of people that had signed up for the excursion. And I guess there were 2 different Fury catamaran boats for our ship, but it was like kind of like packed as like sardines on the ship or on the catamaran once we got on there. And the guy who was our excursion leader was more like a drill sergeant than a captain. The first 15 minutes, he was just drilling everything into our heads of what we needed to do and what needed to be done. But by the time we got in the water and went snorkeling, it turned out to be a pretty fun excursion. And sailing back on the catamaran, it's always fun. And they have a private beach area that has got all those inflatables that you can go and play on. And the kids had a blast there. They never give us enough time there. It was like an hour, but the kids had a blast, jumping off all those inflatables and the trampolines and stuff in the water. So it was a pretty fun excursion. There was another incident. There was one of the guests on our ship or on our catamaran, maybe like 10-year-old, 8 to 10-year-old. He got really sick and like fainted, and they had to administer oxygen to him. And then we rushed back to the port, and there was an ambulance waiting for him at the port. So it turns out he was okay, but like pretty scary on a ship when something like that happens. So don't like to see things like that. It kind of puts a damper on your vacation.
No, I'm glad he was okay at the end of it. But yeah, definitely kind of a scary thing to go through.
Yeah.
Thinking of the snorkeling, did it work good with the kids as far as like the snorkeling gear and everything like that? And did you guys see very much?
We brought some of our own snorkeling gear. They didn't give us fins, which was weird. I thought at the beginning, I was like, how can you snorkel without fins? But if you've ever been to Cozumel, there's quite a strong current. So it was more of a drift snorkel, which was kind of fun. They took us to an area that it was a reef, and then you could tell that they'd kind of created an environment where fish were incented to come to. So it was beautiful. There's tons of fish. There was a little wreck that we snorkeled over as well. But again, way too fast. He said we had 45 minutes in the water. It felt like more like 15, just because of trying to get all the people in and out. But the water was so clear. The snorkeling and the scuba diving on Cozumel is second to no place in this world. Perhaps the Great Barrier Reef. It's just amazing.
We scuba dived there on our Christmas cruise, and that was the first time I've ever done that in Cozumel with that drift like that. It's the first time I've done a drift dive, and it's so cool. You don't even really have to do anything. You just got to float there. It's like the world's going by.
And float there. You could be down there way longer. It's because you don't have to kick your legs. It's really cool experience.
Yeah. So I mean, I hate to ask you this, but since you guys had such a bigger group, did you look into possibly just doing getting a private boat or something like that? Because like sometimes when you start doing the math on how many people it is, sometimes maybe a private thing could work out just as good, if maybe not better.
Yeah, we actually did look at getting a private boat. The one that we had looked at was just more of a snorkel excursion. It was kind of one of those newer glass bottom boats, not the ones where you just look down in the little porthole, but it was like a full glass boat. And that looked fairly interesting. We could have done a private excursion for that, but we'd had to take taxis down to a different pier, and it was just a little logistically harder. So we just wanted to make it as simple as possible for this time. Last time when we were in Puerto Vallarta over Thanksgiving last year with this same side of the family, we did do a private catamaran and had an amazing experience because there were 30 of us, and we had the whole boat to ourselves, and it was just awesome, except for I got stung by a stingray, but that's a completely different story.
Minor things there, right?
Minor things.
Oh, man. Sorry about that. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I've looked into it. I guess the one thing I remember the very first time we went to Grand Cayman, and I kind of looked into it. And one of the things I kind of found, if you don't go through Disney, but even if you go through Disney when they offer those private ones, a lot of those things book up like right away. And I kind of noticed the same things, even if you went outside of Disney, people are like plan a way out ahead of usually when I'm thinking about it sometimes, and all that kind of stuff was booked up. So definitely one of those things I think you have to really plan out ahead of time sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. We did that when we were in Grand Cayman. A few years before that, did a private boat out to the Stingray City, and it was really cool to be on a smaller boat with just us rather than the big boat with hundreds of people.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time overall. I'm glad that kid was okay and whatnot. So finishing up then, I guess you get back on and you have that last day at sea. How'd you guys spend that? End of a pretty big vacation, Walt Disney World, then, sailing the Disney Dream, and then you got to go back to reality and the kids got to go back to school and everything like that. How'd you spend that last sea day?
Yeah, we tried to make the most of it. I felt like we got back on the ship fairly early on our Cozumel day. So it felt like we kind of had a day and a half at sea or on the ship. Once we got off the catamaran, we just, let the kids get back on with grandma and their cousins. And we went shopping, got some vanilla and some treats and stuff like that at the supermarket. And then, spent the afternoon going through different activities and things like that. Let's see, we hung out at Satellite Falls a lot. We kind of camped out at that funnel puddle pool. Do you know where that is?
Oh, yeah.
It's right above the adult pool.
I love that place. That little area.
It's a great little spot, because depending on where you're sitting, it kind of blocks you from the wind. There's usually plenty of space because everything else was just completely crowded and completely packed. We played games in cabanas, just did card games and stuff like that. That's a great little, tip. Cabanas is always open. Those tables are always available. You can just go up there and hang out. It's quiet. They've got the music playing. It's just a nice little area to chill, either before pirate night, after pirate night. We had pirate night on our Cozumel day right after we got on the ship that night. The rest of the sea day, we did crafts. We did the princess meet and greet. We met with some characters. Like I said, my youngest got an autograph book, so she had to get all the autographs, as many as we possibly could. We did kids crafts. I took some of the tweens and my mom, and we did cruise trivia, and we actually won Disney cruise trivia.
Nice.
So I got the elusive medal. And I really have to thank you, Steve, just because of listening to the podcast. I felt like I knew every answer. I only missed one, and it was I got the godmother of one of the ships wrong. So I switched them around somehow, but I got like 19 out of 20. So won the Disney Cruise Line trivia, and proudly displaying the medal here on my trophy case.
Is it the new one or is it the old one? The old school with
Let's
the black?
See. It's the colored one with Mickey.
Nice. Captain Mickey, and it says winner
Captain
on
Mickey.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
I still have yet to get that one. So one of these days. Good for you guys. That's awesome. So we just had Amy, who has been on the show a couple times too, was just on, and she was talking to the crew staff. She was like, how does some of these people get like every single one of these questions right? Like, is there like kind of a list on the internet? And supposedly from cast member, they said that they've got a computer and they go to it and they just punch it. There's like, 1,000 or some questions, and it just gives you some random questions like that it punches out. So I guess I was like, wow. Yeah. So good on you guys.
Because we went to another trivia that we had been to before, and they were very different questions. So we had expected to dominate. I think it was like 80s song trivia, and we did okay, but we definitely didn't dominate.
See, my wife and I always think we're going to dominate, and they'll throw like some 80s song from like Europe that, like was popular over in Europe or something like that. And it's like, I've never heard this song in my life. And then somebody else will know it. It's amazing. So,
yeah. We played another trivia game that day with a much bigger crowd. It was the Ultimate Disney Trivia, which are, pretty hard questions. We ended up getting second place in that one. Those, some of those questions, I'm like, who would ever know that? Who would ever know Walt Disney's other brother's name, or when it just like random years that things happened? And I'm like, that's not at my trivia knowledge.
How about bingo? Do you guys ever play bingo?
We didn't play bingo this time. We have played before, but just wasn't in the cards this time.
I think we're going to try and do that again. That's pretty, we never did it. And then finally, Chris from California, Chris in the concierge, we sailed with him, and he kind of got us to do it and had a blast. So we've done it a couple times with the kids. So I think we have to do it next time.
Nice.
So, all right.
So
I guess.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say the last show on this last sea day was Beauty and the Beast, which, is the kind of the pinnacle show for the dream. By this point of the cruise, there were a couple of us who were starting to feel a little ill, but we still, watched the show and enjoyed it. But halfway through Belle's solo, the captain or someone came on and a ship-wide announcement again, and said, assessment crew to decks 3 through 9, so-and-so. And then Belle just stood there while the announcement happened, and then she picked up right where she left off and went on with everything. I was like, is there another fire? What is going on here? But yeah, we saw Beauty and the Beast that night, and the worst part, had to go back to the room and start packing.
Oh man, yeah, it's always kind of a bummer. As far as getting off for you guys, how do you guys leave the ship now? Do you usually go and eat dinner or have breakfast with your last restaurant, or do you guys do cabanas? Do you walk off? How do you guys get off?
We typically pack up a couple bags and put them out the night before, and then walk off with the majority of our bags. Go up and have breakfast. And, since we have the late dinner, we have the late breakfast, which is good. We don't have to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to go have breakfast. And that's never a good thing. But because our last night was a little iffy, my middle son got sick. So he was sick most of the night. And then in the morning, my oldest got sick as well. And so neither of them were wanting breakfast or happy. So they just kind of found a quiet corner and just kind of took a nap in the Walt Disney Theater, actually, while we were having breakfast. And it made for a not fun 4-hour car ride back up to Orlando with a couple of sick kids. So,
oh man, I'm sorry.
It happens from time to time. They're in those kids clubs passing something along to one another and just kind of got a stomach bug. Luckily, the majority of us didn't get it. We packed up, got off the ship fairly easily, drove back up to Orlando, and we, with our tickets, we had one day at one of the water parks. So we just went and hung out at Typhoon Lagoon for the day. So they just kind of hung out under an umbrella while we went on water slides because our flight wasn't until 8:00 that night.
Sorry that kind of ended that way for them, but I'm glad you guys had just a great vacation overall.
Yeah. I mean, other than that last day and the flight home, so we had 2 of the kids sick, and then by the time we got to the airport, the third one was sick. So the flight home wasn't ideal, but we made it, and we got home back to Salt Lake about midnight. Got home back to our own beds about 1:30 in the morning. It was actually April Fool's Day that happened. So I was like, that's the worst April Fool's joke that I've ever been part of.
You don't want that again, right?
No, we don't have to go through that again. But overall, 95% of the trip was amazing. And, it was, like I say, we planned this for years, and glad we finally got to get back on board with the kids and, have those memories and create those core memories for them.
And what a special time to be able to do with like cousins and your sister and brother-in-law and your mom as well. So what a special moment. Well, Coby, once again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come on and talk about your experiences on the Disney Dream this past spring break. I really appreciate all the times you've been on and helped our podcast, all the support you've given us over the years. And as I said before, just wish you and the family all the best this summer. It's just right around the corner.
Thanks, Steve. We'll talk soon.
All right. All the best. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
Well, as you can tell, the show was recorded a little while ago. It was last spring when Coby and I got together and talked about their cruise this past spring break on the Disney Dream and also spending time at Disney World. I really want to thank Coby for coming on and sharing his family's experiences and all the times he's come back to do that on our show. Well, even though we're moving into the holiday season with Halloween in front of us, believe it or not, New Year's will be right around the corner, and that next spring break will be coming up soon. So for those of you planning on spring break cruises, I hope this episode helped. We'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. They help bring this show to you each and every week ad-free. If you'd like to find out more how you can support our show, you can go over to patreon.com/DCLpodcast and find out all the information there. Also, we'd like to give a huge shout out to all of you who have taken time to go to iTunes and leave us Apple Podcasts and leave us a review, or wherever you listen to this podcast. That helps us get the word out in the Disney Cruising, the podcasting community of Disney Cruise Line, and just cruising community in general about our show, and helps each and every one of us travel just a little bit smarter. Well, the Halloween on the High Seas sailings are in effect, and the Disney Magic is on her way to the West Coast. She'll be passing through the Panama Canal in just a couple days on October 11th, and our family will be headed down to, actually just not our family, myself and Wake will be headed down with some friends on the Disney Magic later this month on a Halloween on the High Seas sailing, so look for that podcast in the future as well. Well, from all of us here at the DCL Podcast, myself, Steve, Christy, Nova, and Lake, all of us here, if you are heading out with your family or friends on a Disney cruise, headed out to the parks for the holiday magic, or if you're headed out with Adventures by Disney, on behalf of all of us here, we'd like to wish you to be well, enjoy the time with family and friends, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.